My fellow Apple freaks, how the heck are you? David the Franco here from davidthefranco.com. Apple just wrapped up their annual Worldwide Developers Conference, also known as WWDC, their keynotes, and they revealed a lot of things ranging from OS X to iOS to watchOS, and finally, Apple Music. Now, I gotta be honest, about halfway through, unfortunately, I had to step out for about 20 or 30 minutes or so. Meaning I did miss a good portion of iOS 9 in terms of the iPad and multitasking, but I will be talking about that in a future weekend vlog once I actually watch the keynote on my Apple TV tonight. So keep that in mind. This video is simply meant to be a brief breakdown of everything they announced and my, well, brief thoughts. So let's get started. David, you're already taking up too much time. First up is the next version of OS X called OS X El Capitan. El Capitan? Is that correct? Kind of an interesting choice. I'm not going to diss it just because it's new. I mean, I got to be honest. At first, OS X Yosemite, I wasn't a big fan of the name, but now I'm loving it. So, it's just a name. People, calm down. And yeah. So anyway, this is basically Snow Leopard and Mountain Lion, where they're going to add a few cool new features. But for the most part, Apple is focusing on experience and performance. And honestly, I think that's the right move because I'm loving Yosemite, but it is easily the buggiest OS X update in quite some time. So I'm just really happy to see that they're focusing on things that actually matter. Okay, so first up are swipe gestures. This is basically Apple's way of further taking advantage of the multi-touch trackpad and better integrating their hardware with their software in OS X. Which should be pretty cool, especially considering I have a MacBook Pro with Retina display on its way in just a few days. So yes, this means I can finally take advantage of these features. Next up, we have a pretty cool feature where you can mute the audio in your Safari address bar. So sometimes there are those moments where you have like 10 tabs open at once and some annoying ad starts playing music, or some video is still playing audio on a YouTube tab or Vimeo or whatever. And it's not always easy to find that audio right away. Well, now you can go up in the taskbar in Safari and simply click or tap that audio icon and boom, the audio is muted. Simple feature, but I think it could be quite useful. Next up, we have Smarter Spotlight Search, which is pretty cool. It's more like Google Now, I think, which is a good thing. It shows your weather, it shows a bunch of other things. Obviously, this is something that I have to use myself to talk about in further detail. So stay tuned for future videos on that in the, well, future. And we also have better window management and split view. Now, Apple is definitely taking something out of Microsoft's book in terms of Windows 7 because something I've always liked about Windows 7, or was it with Windows Vista? I forget. But either way, it's now a standard feature in Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 and all that good stuff. And that's the fact that you can drag a window to the top left or top right corner or wherever, and it automatically snaps to take up 50% of that screen real estate, which is really neat. So with OS X El Capitan, you simply drag the green icon, in the top left corner of your window, and then boom, it automatically snaps. Now, I don't know how often I'm going to be using this feature, but I'm glad to see that Apple added it. And finally, we have faster performance, less bugs, blah, blah, blah. All good stuff, of which I'll talk about in a few months because it is available as a free upgrade in the fall. Next up, iOS 9. Let's go through this rather quickly. According to Apple, and obviously this is a fact, Siri takes over 1 billion requests a week. I'm just putting a heavy emphasis on that because sometimes people tend to diss Siri and say it's pointless. I use Siri pretty much every day, even for simple things like setting alarms, setting timers, and especially calling people. I rarely open up my phone app. I say, call so-and-so, and it works just fine. But I'm glad to see that Apple is concentrating on Siri and just focusing on improving it in general because it definitely needs some work, and it looks like Apple's moving in the right direction. Okay, so we have a new search screen on iOS 9, which is more like Google Now. It shows your contacts, it shows your weather, I think. It shows a bunch of things. It shows local places, and it definitely looks nice. But what's different is now you swipe your finger to the right, taking you to the furthest left side of your home screens, and that's where you see the search. Now, that's how it was before iOS 7. Honestly, I'm fine with either method because my iPhone and iPad are always restricted down to one home screen. That's just how I prefer to use it. I just like a clean interface, so this doesn't affect me whatsoever. But if you do have multiple home screens, you'll definitely want to keep this in mind. However, I'm not sure what swiping down does. Maybe it still does search and it doesn't show you as much information as this new search view does. So I guess I'll have to find out, well, when people start releasing screenshots, videos, and all that good stuff. And apparently iOS 9 has better integration with your daily routine. It'll kind of predict what kind of apps you want to use as soon as you wake up, during the evening of your day, as you're going to bed, and so on and so forth. And what's really cool is with Siri now, you can be pretty specific. You could say, hey Siri, show me photos from last June. Now that's really cool if you're looking for a specific album or a specific time of the year. For instance, if I don't have an album titled Seaside Heights and I took photos last July, I could say, hey Siri, show me photos from 4th of July weekend. And boom, in theory, my Seaside Heights photos should come up right there. That's pretty cool. Now, Apple made it very clear to say this: your data is kept 100% anonymous. And yes, that's definitely an obvious stab at Google. Not that I mind Google using my data because it technically helps improve their products and services for my convenience, but there are people out there who don't like their data being used. So it's pretty cool to see that Apple took a few minutes to say, no, we are not going to be taking advantage of your personal data. We don't want it. We don't care. It's your data. Passbook is being renamed to Wallet. Cool. There's a new news app, which I did not pay attention to because that's the time when I unfortunately had to step out for a few minutes. But if it's what it sounds like, cool. It's probably something I'll check out, but not something I'll use every day. We have Split View, which is finally true multitasking on the iPad Air 2. Yes, only the iPad Air 2, not my beloved iPad mini. However, I see that changing this fall when they come out with a new iPad mini, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. But for now, I will say Split View looks really cool. You can put mail on one side, you can put Twitter over here, photos over here, Yelp over here, and Facebook over here, and your mail app, and so on and so forth. So, in theory, as I like to say, that could be pretty neat. It's obviously one of those features that I'm going to have to use for myself. And finally, iOS 9 will be available as a free upgrade for both iPhone and iPad in the fall. But it is available today as a beta, so check it out if you're a developer. So now let's talk about, boom, watchOS 2, definitely my favorite part of the keynote besides Apple Music. Now this is really, really interesting. The Apple Watch has only been out for what, 2 months? Maybe not even. I think like 6 weeks. And they're already announcing watchOS 2. Now obviously they've had these features in the works before the Apple Watch even came out. That makes sense. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Apple's already working on iOS 10. Yes, that's how this industry works. So yes, today they did announce watchOS 2, and it looks really nice. Now, I'm going to go through my list real quick. Native app support. Thank the Apple gods. Definitely my most requested feature. Now, this finally means, and by finally, what, like 6 weeks I said? This means that we will get access to native apps, running as they should, opening instantly, bug-free, silky smooth performance. So thank you, Apple, and now it's up to you developers to show us what you've got. New watch faces. Yes, that's kind of a big deal considering this is a watch. We have photo album faces, which is pretty cool. So you go to your Photos app, you zoom in, you do force touch on a photo, and you say set as album face, and boom, it automatically sets as your album face. Customization like that goes a long way. And we have time-lapse watch faces, which seem pretty neat. We do have custom complications in the works thanks to the new API available to the watchOS 2 developers. This is a big deal. So now complications can work in tandem with your apps. In tandem, is that the right terminology? So say for instance, I'm using Pandora. Now my complications can work with Pandora. And my complications can work with Swarm. And the list goes on and on. Again, this comes down to the developers. So this could be really neat. Nightstand View, which is pretty cool. It lets you view your time in landscape mode. Because once again, here I go. In theory, most users put their Apple Watch on their nightstand when they go to bed. And well, now this gives you an easier way of seeing your alarms, your time, and all that good stuff. Now for me personally, not a big deal because I use this. Actually, I'm not going to bring it because it's hooked up right now. But I use like an Arch Apple Watch Cradle. And well, actually, I will link you up below if you're interested. So this does not affect me, but cool. It's neat that Apple's added this feature. You can now have your friends in groups, so that's neat. You can also reply to emails directly using the Mail app. Cool, but I can already do this in Cloud Magic, but cool. This is awesome that Apple's including official support. You can use Siri now to start workouts. Now, this may not affect everyone, but I made this very clear by now. I love biking when we go camping. So in theory, I could say, hey Siri, start an outdoor cycle workout for 10 miles. And boom, it starts it right there instead of having to go through all the menus and whatever. Awesome. Thank you, Apple. The Maps app now has support for transit. I rarely use transit, but for those who do, cool. Yes, I'm saying cool a lot, but you guys gotta understand, this is cool, especially considering the Apple Watch just came out not too long ago. What else do we have here? We have better Siri integration with directions, glances, etc. Apps can now access the speaker. Awesome, thank you. The microphone, pretty cool. And you can now play back video on the Apple Watch. Now, some may say, David, that's ridiculous. Why would you want to watch a video on your Apple Watch of a screen this small, 42 millimeters? Well, why not? I mean, if you want to glance at a video real quick, that's why it's there. Enjoy it. And apparently, watchOS 2 makes better use of HealthKit. So that's obviously something I'm going to have to explore over time. And just like iOS 9 and OS X El Capitan, watchOS 2 is available as a free upgrade in the fall. Now let's get to the start of the show. Let's talk about Apple Music. But before I talk about that, let me make this clear. I love music. I mean, who in the right mind doesn't enjoy music? I mean, I love listening to music. It sets the mood, it gets you hyped, it puts you to sleep. You know, there are all kinds of different uses for music, which is why it's so great. It's a very personal experience. But, to be perfectly honest, I don't get too excited over the thoughts of new music services and just new music apps and all that good stuff in general, because I'm very happy with Pandora. I pay $4 a month for it. Sure, it's far from perfect, but it works great. I love it. However, that might change as of today, because with Apple Music, they're calling it three things. One, a revolutionary music service, a 24/7 global radio station, and it allows artists to connect with fans using their Connect service. Now, first up, let's talk about music. Apple's calling this a revolutionary music service. Now, is this really revolutionary? That is completely relative to your experience. But I will say this, I'm excited. I mean, this is essentially allowing me to stream millions of songs in the iTunes library for one price per month. That's pretty cool, because I gotta say, that's one thing I don't like about Pandora, is it doesn't allow me to customize my music selection to the point that I want to. But then again, there's Spotify Premium, which I've used for $10 a month. And it was cool. I mean, I wasn't totally happy with it because I'm still kind of biased towards Pandora. But now that Apple's coming out with their own service that does essentially what Spotify Premium does, that has me interested because of one thing. The tight integration with my Mac, iOS, and I'm sure eventually watchOS, and especially my Apple TV. I am always streaming music to my Apple TV when I'm making dinner, using AirPlay from my iPad mini. But if I could just use Apple's native music service, I think that can make the experience a lot easier for me, the user, and a lot more media rich as well. So I gotta say, that alone is very enticing. The fact that I can stream millions of songs, and guys, let's face it, iTunes, I believe, is the top music brand in the world. They have access to pretty much every song imaginable. So I think this could be a hit. I think so. Now, the other thing they concentrated on is the 24/7 radio station called Beats One. This doesn't interest me all that much, but the idea of having a 24/7 radio station could be pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of like a 24/7 live stream of video. I mean, you know, like twit.tv, not that they do 24/7 live streaming anymore, but it's still one of those things that you kind of get curious about, like, let me check into this. Let me see what's happening over here. So in theory, it could be pretty cool, and who knows, maybe I'll enjoy it more than I'm predicting right now. And then finally, Connect. Now, this is essentially like Ping 2.0, and let's be honest, Ping was an utter and complete failure. Unfortunately, because I gotta be honest, at first I was excited when Apple said that they're gonna get into the whole social network business, and keep in mind, this was years ago, and well, it turns out it flopped miserably. But a few years later, I think Apple has done their homework, they've learned their lesson, and they're making it better with Connect. Now, this is allowing us, the fans, behind the scenes access of our favorite artists through videos, I think maybe even lessons here and there, and bonus content, basically. Bonus content. Now, this is not something I'm going to use really that frequently, to be honest, but there are fans out there who will use this, and it's pretty cool that Apple's taking the next step to try to make the music experience that much more personal. But at the end of the day, I'm just excited about one thing. The streaming. The streaming, because iTunes has a lot more music than Pandora does, especially with my taste. I mean, I really love video game soundtracks, and for some reason, Pandora, they do a good job with it overall, but their library is nothing compared to what iTunes currently offers. So that alone is a huge deal. Oh, and by the way, we will have access to tens of thousands of music videos with 0 ads. That could be a big deal to a lot of people. Oh, and we have tight integration with Siri. Kind of like Amazon Echo, you could say, hey Siri, play 90s music related to so-and-so. Because currently with my Amazon Echo, I say, Alexa, play me something from the 80s. Or Alexa, play me something relaxing. I just heard the Amazon Echo go on. Alexa, stop. No offense. I don't know what she was saying. She was reading some kind of list. But cool, that is really neat. Now, Apple Music is launching on June 30th. I was going to say April 30th. June 30th, which is just a few weeks away, which is awesome. But this is what's really interesting, guys. It's launching on iOS, OS X, Windows, and Android. Android! What the hell's happening here? Now, this is really, really cool. I do have an Android phone, my LG G4. Of course, the battery's dead. I gotta charge it. But it's really neat that Apple is paying attention to the whole Android ecosystem. Because let's face it, if they want to make a dent in the universe in terms of releasing a music service that can conquer them all, Pandora, Spotify, Tidal, that's the way to do it. They need to jump in as many markets as possible. And iOS and Android, they are both dominating the smartphone market. So Apple, very smart move. That alone could gain you a lot of market share. But even better, hey Maui, the service will be available for just $10 a month, which I don't think is too crazy. I mean, honestly, I was hoping for something lower, maybe like $7 a month, $8 a month, but $10 a month isn't bad, especially if you factor in, here comes Maui, if I cancel my Pandora subscription, which is $4 a month, then I'm kind of saving money in the process. Really, Maui? I'm trying to make a video here. But even better, you get 3 months of free service. 3 months of free service. That's essentially free access to Apple Music for the entire season of summer. That's a big deal. So that alone has me very interested in Apple Music, and I will be signing up on June 30th. And who knows, I could become a paying customer within just, well, a few months. Really, Maui? So cool. Overall, a solid keynote, but let me take a minute to say this. If you were disappointed by the keynote, that's your own fault. You cannot get too hyped up for these Apple keynotes. You need to keep your expectations low. Alright, Maui, you need to get down. Good boy. Because last year's keynote was huge with iOS 8. Well, that was, I don't know. I don't think that was huge. But Yosemite. Yosemite was a huge announcement. It was a complete overhaul of OS X. Well, in terms of user interface and a few new features here and there. All I'm trying to say is you have to be realistic. I mean, the keynote was over 2 hours long. Definitely the longest keynote in a while. And overall, I gotta say, it was pretty solid. I enjoyed it. I mean, the first half was a little slow with OS X El Capitan or whatever, and iOS 9. But keep in mind, I did miss a good portion of the iOS 9 announcements, so I will have to watch that tonight on my Apple TV. So guys, anyway, those are my thoughts. It was exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting like a Snow Leopard-like update to OS 10. I wasn't expecting anything revolutionary with iOS 9, although split view looks pretty cool. WatchOS 2, I gotta say, we found out more information today than we expected, or actually, than I expected. I can't speak for everyone, obviously. And Apple Music, honestly, impressed me more than I thought it would. So overall, I gotta say, it was solid. It was definitely a good day for Apple. So guys, what do you think? Post your comments right below, and I swear, the second you start a fight, you're out. Don't start a fight. It's stupid. Don't fight over technology. Just saying. Enjoy it. We're lucky to be surrounded by so many freaking gadgets. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Peace. And Maui says bye too.